As someone who'd had lifelong, well, at least adult lifelong connections to Japan, I was horrified when the disaster struck the coast. I was glued to my TV most of that week. And the therapist part of me, first of all, kicked in. I was thinking, how do people cope with something like this? If you've been lucky enough or to survive, how do you process something that is almost beyond imagination? Because some of the scenes of the tsunami were like beyond a nightmare. So first of all, I was thinking, how do you begin to pick up your life from the debris of that colossal event? But also, I realised there were two personal triggers. I'd had a very close friend who had become something like a father for me after my own father had died, and he was a Japanese writer and academic. And he'd become almost a part of our family, so very much a kind of quasi grandfather to our two boys when they were small, and we spent time in Japan, and he spent a lot of time here. And he had died before the tsunami, and I think we were still processing that loss. It was a profound loss for us as a family. And on top of that, we had friends living in Fukushima City who were shaken by the earthquake and the constant aftershocks, which came thick and fast day by day. And we got emails from our friends there telling us what it was like to ride those aftershocks, but also the huge uncertainty as the radiation disaster developed from Fukushima Daiichi power station. Could they go out in the rain? They didn't know. What would happen to them next? Was it safe even to leave the flat? And so adding all those personal inspirations and also that colossal effect of how do you process trauma from a disaster like the 2011 disaster, all of that came together, and I started to think about planning a novel that might be able to work from an outsider's point of view, but an outsider who had maybe half of one foot within the culture I was hoping to write about. I'd thought for a long time. I've been writing books in graphic form. The last book I did with my brother was an illustrated novel, and before that, we had done a graphic novel together. And I'm very interested in visual storytelling. And because this is a book set in Japan, I thought it would work really well to have a significant component. In this case, about a quarter of it is manga. And importantly, it fitted the story about a retired manga artist. What was the hard point for me was working out why and what the manga would be doing. So it took about 2 years for me to realise that the manga would tell a world that we can't necessarily see that easily. The manga part would be maybe partly about the world of the imagination, but maybe partly about the world that lies just beyond our own border, into the other world, or in the grey zone between this world and the other world. Um, Chie was introduced to me by a mutual friend. The script for the manga part was largely written, but the publisher and I really felt we had to have an authentic manga voice telling that manga component. So I was slightly nervous when I approached her because I really hoped that she would see this was something that she would want to do, but also something that she felt had been done in a respectful and intelligent and useful way. So we had a couple of really quite honest and forthright conversations. And after that, I think we established trust really quickly. And then she set about drafting the manga panels. And as soon as I saw the first few panels, I thought this is going to work. We discussed things backwards and forwards, the look of certain characters, even really specific things about the locations because they're all based on real places. And then I just started to watch the drawings come in, and it was a wonderful experience. I'm not sure what I think about anything of the big questions. Since I was 11, I've been probably focused on the big questions. Is there a God? What's time? What happens after we die? Um, I studied philosophy at university. I've been deeply engaged in Buddhism. I read a lot of ghost stories. In the zone, I heard things that feel quite compelling for maybe the survival of the soul after death. And yet, then when I come home or I'm sitting on a bright sunny day, I think, yeah, this is just psychological. This is just a psychological thing that happens. So in the end, I think I still don't know, but I think the overlap between what we know and what we don't know is quite an interesting place to sit. So I hope this book helps people to sit in that space. Well, there are so many extraordinary people we met when we were travelling in, particularly around the fringes of the radiation zone around Fukushima. Um, the first lady we met, Yuko-san, took us to the spot where she'd survived the tsunami just by running up a small slope away from the port area. That still absolutely sticks in my mind. You could see the trauma still in her face, but you could also feel her determination to get on and make a new life. I met a 94-year-old who's living on his own in a pretty much deserted hamlet with radiation still at the bottom of his garden. He was still chopping his own firewood and stacking it every day. And he told me about the day of the tsunami and what life was like in the communities before the earthquake and tsunami and radiation. And probably the person who really sticks in my mind, though, is Tomoko Kobayashi, who's actually in the picture behind me here. She's the fourth generation innkeeper of the Ryokan Inn she runs. And her determination to keep hope and forward-lookingness alive after the disaster was just life-changing and inspiring. I hope people, when they read the book, come away with not a simplistic sense of, oh yeah, we can overcome any disaster if we just use our imagination. I do want people to come away thinking that the stories we tell about ourselves can limit ourselves as much as strengthen ourselves. And so we have to maybe keep a subtle sense of possibility about what we can do, what we can overcome, what we can survive. There are certainly people living in the disaster zone who are still severely traumatized, and every person's story is unique. But the one thing I came across was this determination to find a new normal, which of course is really relevant to where we are as we come hopefully towards the end of the pandemic, and the sense that sometimes we have deeper reserves of strength than we believe we do.